In this week's Studio Live Today podcast, we're talking all things subscriptions. Now, I know subscriptions is a four-letter word for a lot of folks because many of us are juggling our Netflix, our Disney Plus, our Apple Music, our Spotify, all of the subscriptions. And more recently, we've seen software go to subscription models. Some people hate it, some people tolerate it. Do some people love it? I don't know. We'll talk about all of that. Hi, my name is Pete. This is the Studio Live Today podcast. If you want to find out more about what we do around here, head over to studiolivetoday.com. There you'll find the YouTube channel. You'll find links to all of the things and all the ways that you can follow me and the Studio Live Today community. All the good stuff is there. Now, this is a very poignant and relevant topic, and I thought we'd tackle it this week in particular. Because if you're listening or watching this right as it's happening, guess what? Apple have just announced that Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro are coming to the iPad. Yay! Hit your reggae horns and rounds of applause and all the rest of the stuff. What we thought would never happen has happened. We have Logic Pro and we have Final Cut Pro on the iPad. It's going to be cool, but it's also going to be a subscription. And many folks have expressed their concerns about this because a lot of people don't like subscriptions. Some folks would rather just pay outright and would like to own their software or own their music or own their movies or own their TV shows. Is the culture of ownership gone? Will we actually be able to own things in the future? Or do we need to surrender to the fact that everything is going to be a service now? I don't know. I'd love to get your opinion and your views on this as we go through the show. If you're watching the show here on YouTube, feel free to leave your comments. If you're watching the premiere version, you can chat here live, or if you're watching on the replay, drop your comments. If you're listening to the audio version, there won't be a whole lot that you'll miss out on here. I will show a couple of things on the screen as we go through, because as we scroll down here, and you can go over to the Apple website and take a look here yourself, right down the bottom of the Logic Pro for iPad, where it tells you all the cool things that we have for Logic Pro coming to the iPad, and there's other videos here on the channel, and will be many more coming in the near future. But one of the questions is, how much does Logic Pro for iPad cost? And that's where it says. Here in Australia, it's a $7.99 monthly or a $59 a year subscription. In the US, it'll be $4.99 or $49. For our UK friends, it's going to be £4.99 Great British pounds, or 49 quid for the year. So this has triggered the usual kind of debate that we have around this sort of thing, which is, should we be able to actually buy things? And I guess the challenge with this particular one is that Logic Pro on the Mac is an outright purchase. So it's $199 for the folks in the US. It's $299 here in Australia. I bought it last year, Logic Pro for Mac. Haven't used it as much as I thought I would, but it's there and I own it forever, and I don't have to pay for any upgrades or anything in the future. It's bought. It's done. So is software as a service, the whole SaaS model where we're paying a service, a subscription fee for a piece of software, is this the future? Well, to talk about that, we're going to go back in the past. Let's go back in time. Let's get the fairy dust out and go back in time and talk about the whole model of subscriptions. Where did they come from? Why are they so prevalent now? And is there anything we can do about them? I don't know. Yeah, you tell me. Love to hear your comments and your feedback. So the history of subscriptions, they've been around for a long time. The whole concept of not owning the actual thing. You used to pay, for instance, our friends in the UK, they paid a license fee to own a television. So back in the 80s and 90s, and hey, maybe it's still there now. I don't know. I haven't caught up lately. Let us know. British folks, do you still pay a license fee for your TV? But that has been around for a long time. And look, you could even say that here in Australia, we have the ABC. I think in America, you have PBS. We have public broadcasting, which is paid for by our taxes. Is that the first subscription content? I don't know. We have other types of subscriptions too. So we've got magazine subscriptions and newspaper subscriptions. And as much as maybe you could say, hey, I own my magazines, I own my newspaper, unless you're going to be on the next episode of Hoarders, you probably don't have every magazine and every newspaper you have ever purchased through a subscription model. That would be kind of weird. But, you do you. If you've got the room, if you've got the attic and you can store all your magazines and your newspapers up there, go for it. But for me, look, I loved and still love to a certain degree owning media, owning the actual physical items. And if you're watching the video version, you can see in the background here that I've got a giant wall of CDs because I bought hundreds, if not thousands, of CDs throughout the 90s and early 2000s, and I loved buying CDs. I also had a massive DVD collection, which has now been sold on eBay or donated to various charity shops over time because, again, the subscription models have taken over, haven't they? Yeah. In terms of your video and your music, it happened quickly but slowly. So I guess Netflix was kind of the first subscription, but was it? We've been renting things for a long time. We've been renting movies. We've been borrowing things from libraries. Every time that you went back in the day, did anyone go to Blockbuster back in the day? Yeah, guess what? That was like a subscription. That was a rental. You didn't own that. Because the way that things were set up back in the day is that to actually buy a new release movie on VHS tape, it was going to cost you 70, 80, 90, $100, but you could rent it for just $6 a night or $5 or $7, depending where you were in the world and what time it was and how popular things were. So video stores or video rental was kind of like the first borrowing. It was not owning your media. You were renting the experience. Is that a subscription? Well, kind of, because I don't know about you, but my video store, as they were failing and flailing in the 2000s, they went to a subscription model. I paid $30 a month to my local video store, and I could rent as many DVDs and video games as I wanted to. And that was awesome for me because I thought, hey, you can get things, you can play the games, you can watch the DVDs, and then you take it back and then you get the next one. That was obviously very similar to a model brought by a company called Netflix. So speaking of Blockbuster, Blockbuster were kind of taken down, were replaced, were removed, and unseated by the wonder that was Netflix. Now, originally, for those that weren't around back in the day, Netflix were a DVD rental service. So you subscribed to Netflix, you paid a subscription fee, but you did not own any one of those DVDs or any one of those movies. You would just pay for however many movies you wanted to have out at any given time. So if you wanted 2 movies out, you'd pay you $9.99 a month. Or if you wanted 3 movies, it was $12.99. I forget the prices. It was different here in Australia. We had different things anyway. But that was kind of a subscription. And that was, to me, the first sign that we were moving very much away from owning media. And folks were actually looking for that. Now, how does this relate to software, though? Because it's one thing, you might be saying, Johns, it's one thing to have a subscription for content, for media, for music, for movies, maybe even for video games. But isn't software different? Shouldn't you be able to just pay outright for that music plugin, for that piece of music software, for that Logic Pro or Final Cut Pro on iPad, instead of paying the $5 a month in per diem for the rest of your life? Well, yeah, that was definitely the way that I thought in the past and the way that I wanted things to be. Because here's the thing that I like about subscriptions is when a subscription continues giving you value. So if we go back to my subscription at the video store, the fact that new release games and new release DVDs would be constantly coming out, it meant that I could keep buying those. I wasn't just stuck with whatever was available at the time that I subscribed. Things were being added. Now, that's always been my criticism and many people's criticism of paying a subscription fee for software. I've been on the record as saying if you get an EQ plugin and instead of you being able to buy it for $12.99, you have to pay 99 cents a month subscription fee. Sure, you're paying about the same over a 12-month period. But if they're not actually adding to that, if they're not changing things, if they're not making that better over that time, once you're a year in, what are you getting in year 2? What value are you getting in the second year from that? Now, in terms of software, one of the most predominant or at least well-known software companies that's gone to a subscription model is Adobe. So right now, Adobe, if you want to use Adobe Photoshop, it used to be you'd pay for $199, $299, whatever it was at the time. Now you can only get Photoshop by subscribing, and it's $10 a month. So $120 a year. $600 for 5 years of Photoshop. Like, you've got to think about things like this, don't you? So to me, that's a pretty big cost. And forget about it. If, like me, you used to edit video on Premiere Pro, I owned Premiere Pro, I want to say 2013. I can't remember. It was just before Adobe went to the whole Creative Cloud suite where you had to be on the Creative Cloud to actually use this stuff. So I actually owned outright the version. But then Adobe said, actually, you know what, Johns? No, you have to pay a fee. And I'm pretty sure before I saw the light and moved over to using LumaFusion on my iPad and my iPhone for all of my video editing, which I have been doing now for several years, I'm pretty sure that it was around $50 or $60 a month that I was paying. And for that, I was getting Adobe Premiere, Photoshop, InDesign, Lightroom, all this stuff. Didn't have a clue how to use it. I'm pretty sure I got 2 terabytes of cloud storage too. Didn't use any of it. All I wanted was Premiere Pro to throw my video clips in, edit them, and get them back out. And here's the thing. Here's what I found with Premiere Pro. Yeah, they were adding a few little upgrades and versions were sort of slightly increasing, but fundamentally, it was the same bit of software, month in, month out, year in, year out. So, subscription models for software, to me, they're 100% fine as long as you're getting value. So let's bring it back to Apple, because I know many of you are considering this at the moment. It's the new hotness. It's the brand new thing. Apple have just launched Logic and Final Cut Pro for iPad. And you're thinking, do I take up the subscription? If, like me in the past, you've been very anti-subscription, maybe you're considering it and maybe you're very concerned about this. Here's why I think it's actually going to be okay. Number one is it's actually pretty cheap. In the grand scheme of things, yeah, look, $50 a year is not inconsequential for many folks out there. I completely get it. But at the same time, as we just discussed, if Final Cut Pro is $5 a month and Premiere Pro is $50 a month, because you have to get the whole bundle, I'm paying the $5 a month. The same with Logic Pro. Our Pro Tools subscription is significantly more than $5 per month. And you can say, yeah, but Pro Tools is a desktop app, Pete, and this is an iPad app. I get it. But I think that one thing I think that's going to be pretty prevalent in the next few months and years, and prove me wrong, future, but I think we're going to see some additions and some upgrades. So this is version 1.0. To give you a bit of an idea, GarageBand is now at version 2.9.4. I can't even remember now. So we're going to see iteration over time. So if this is Logic Pro version 1.0 and Final Cut Pro version 1.0, 1.01 and then 1.1 and 1.2 and then version 2 and then version 3, these are all upgrades. These are all new software, basically. They're going to give you new things that you can do. So if you refer it back to the Netflix model, it's not exactly the same. It's not a brand new movie coming out. But if Logic Pro introduces like an amazing new flex time module that's added to Logic on iPad, or if Final Cut Pro introduces something new, I'm not as much into video editing, but they introduce something cool in version 1.1, yeah, that's going to be worth having that. And I would rather be paying a subscription knowing. The same with Netflix. Like if Netflix just said, here's all your shows, and we could charge you half as much, but we're not going to put any investment into adding new stuff. It's all just going to be stagnant and stay the same. And we're not going to add and invest in new productions of new shows and new movies. Going to be pretty boring, yeah? Yeah, even though Disney Plus, I would pay to just have my Simpsons, because I need my Simpsons, man. I need my Simpsons. Inject Simpsons directly into my bloodstream. No, not really. That's weird. So, I know I say all of this and it sounds like I'm defending the subscription model, because I know Waves plugins came out and they weren't going to do a subscription model. I just think that it is really reducing the barrier to entry, and this is where I think it's a good thing. And again, I've got to take the good with the bad. I've put myself out there and I've said I don't love subscriptions. And personally, if there was an option to buy this outright for $199 or pay $49 a year, I would probably pay the $199. But there's plenty of people out there, they're not going to put $199 into this. It might not be for them. And here's the cool thing. A lot of these subscriptions have a free trial. So when I signed up to Netflix, I'm pretty sure I got a free week or a free month. And all the different streaming platforms, they'll give you a free trial. They'll let you take the first taste is free, kid. They'll let you taste it before you actually commit. And that's the cool thing with this. You get 1 month for free and a month with complete access. And this isn't no cut down version. This isn't no Pro Tools Lite or Pro Tools Free that you get for free. This is the full version. For a month, you can do everything in it. and then you can decide whether you want it. And the same sort of thing. You can do this with a lot of these other streaming platforms. And you know what? If you wanted to like the streaming platforms, if you wanted to binge every show and then cancel at day 29, you can do that. Same with Logic Pro. Go out there, record your entire album, mix it, master it, get it ready to release, and then cancel on day 29. Totally fine. And you may even find that. That's the thing. Maybe you're a weekend warrior and you only really have 6 weeks a year over Christmas holiday or over summer holiday. Because, a lot of folks are in the US. So maybe you got 6 weeks over summer where you can sit down and record music. Guess what? You're paying $10 a year for Logic because you don't need it the other 10 months a year. You don't have the time to be producing in those 10 months. You can dabble in GarageBand for free for that time and then utilize it. So the ability to turn subscriptions off and on is something that I think is pretty cool. I do this with sport. I love cricket, not a huge fan of footy. So here in Australia, cricket season is summer. I pay the premium for KO Sports here in Australia. I want to watch every cricket game. Soon as cricket season's over, guess what I do? I cancel my KO subscription and I don't have it all winter. And then we hit October and let's bring back the KO subscription. So there are ways to utilize this to your own advantage when it comes to subscriptions. Same with your TV subscription, same with your music subscription. I've got a weird thing at the moment where my daughter has friends that have Spotify and they're sharing songs and they're sharing playlists on Spotify. And she actually, before we went away, went to the US recently. Before we went away, she actually upgraded her Spotify to premium because you got a month free. Again, that whole free subscription thing. And I said, "Yep, go with the free month and check it out." And it was coming to the end of the month, and I'm like, "Do you want to pay for it?" And she's like, "Yeah, nah." So we cancelled it, and immediately she was like, "Oh man, maybe I should pay for this premium because like now I can't interact with my friends and all that sort of jazz." So yeah, there's different things for different people, and again, I said to her, "You realize we have Apple Music, we have YouTube Music, they have all the same songs, but guess what? For a 13-year-old, her friends are there, they're not here." So there is that thing. So hey, if she wants to pay the $10 a month for Spotify Premium, more power to her. Definitely going to allow her to do that. So let's talk about some of the subscriptions that are maybe not the best. So I touched on it before, but there are definitely subscriptions that are predatory business models. So I'm not talking about your Netflixes or your Disney Plus or your Apple One subscriptions or any of that sort of stuff. That is providing pretty clear value. But there are definitely subscriptions that you can accidentally sign up for, that you can that you can be pushed into that you don't actually realize. Or again, those subscriptions that aren't giving you consistent value. They're not updating the value over time. So why would you subscribe to something if it's just a thing? Why wouldn't you pay for it outright? And I kind of got stung by this on an app recently where I subscribed and I went on the free trial. And I know this. I'm experienced with this sort of stuff, but it was a 7-day free trial, and then it was going to be a subscription. But I kind of didn't realize that even though it said it would be I think $6 a month subscription, it was going to charge a whole year. So guess what Johns didn't do? He didn't remember to cancel that subscription. So I paid, I think it was $59 or maybe even $79 a year for an app that helps me identify plants. Yes, that's right. Now, if you want to know what plant a plant is, you can identify. And look, it's actually been kind of fun. I forget the name of it. It's called like Picture This or something. It's actually been kind of fun because when I'm out walking with the kids, I'll be like, "You want to know what that is? That's a Botswanian ivy leaf plant." And they're like, "You're making that up?" I'm like, "Yes, I am. Can't you tell by my fake phone?" Sorry, audio folks, I'm pretending to use a phone. But yeah, it's very easy to fall into these traps. And how many of us, hands up here in the live chat here on the premiere, or if you're watching on the replay, just put a comment with your hand in the air. For those of us that have accidentally kept a subscription going, or not realized we've been subscribed to something, or not realized that we didn't cancel something when we meant to, and then you realize there's been that $1.99 a month, $2.99 a month, $9.99 a month. Check your credit cards, people. Check your statements and remove it. Now, my tip for this, if you're an Apple user, my tip for this is subscribe to stuff through your iPhone or your iPad or your Mac because you've got complete control then. If you go into the subscriptions section of your iOS device, everything you've subscribed. So if you subscribe to Netflix, this is why it made it so easy for me. When I subscribed to KO, which is that sports streaming app I talked about, it was in there. And I didn't have to go to KO. I didn't have to go through their retention team. I didn't have to go through any forms or bells or whistles. I went into my Apple and I said, cancel. And it said, cool, you'll get to use this up until your next renewal date, and then you won't. And it's as simple as that. So, for all the things that many of us say about subscriptions and about Apple and not doing the right thing, this is one thing I think that if you are subscribing to things, using Apple as the place you subscribe actually makes things a lot easier. In fact, I've got a video, I did a short about this showing you how to actually manage that. The other thing I'll say is when you subscribe to something, for the love of your deity of choice, put a reminder in. So if you are going to take up the Logic Pro, the Final Cut Pro subscription, or even if on Mac you're doing the 90-day Logic Pro trial, because there's a 3-month free trial of Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro on Mac, set yourself a calendar reminder, do a couple. Do one 3 days beforehand and then do one day beforehand, because you're probably going to ignore the 3 days beforehand one. Yeah, right here. I've done that before. You're like, I'll get around to it. I'll cancel it. And then you don't. And then you're stuck with the subscription. So do set yourself reminders. Make sure that you're using the Apple subscriptions if you're an Apple user. And if not, just be really careful about what you're subscribing to, because I don't want you to spend your hard-earned cash on things that you don't actually want. So, what is the future? Where are we now and where are we going? If you, like me, love your CDs, or you love your vinyl records, or you love collecting DVDs or VHS videos or cassettes, I ain't going to judge. Physical media is kind of cool, but it is niche, and it's not what the majority of people are wanting these days. Now, that may sound harsh. You may be thinking, we shouldn't just go with the majority. Like that's just following. We need to be individual. We need to be unique. Absolutely. But we got to realize that businesses need to make money. Yes, we're in a capitalist society. Most of us live in capitalist societies. So businesses, in order to survive, need to have a customer base. They need to serve that customer base, but they also need to make money for their shareholders and money to put back into the business. So as much as I hate to say that, because I know many folks, especially creative folks and artists, don't like to hear that. They don't like to think about the fact that people need to put food on the table and make a living. And they definitely don't want to hear that companies need to increase their share price and make their shareholders happy, because they're thinking about big, fat, rich, fat cats sitting up in their ivory towers going, oh, the share price went down 14 cents, Marjorie, and I was going to buy that ivory back scratcher. Yeah, I know. We don't like that view, but it's reality. And unfortunately, it's the lay of the land. So when you're talking about software or media, music, videos, whatever it is, we're going to see more and more of this model. So what does it mean for you? It means you need to be savvy. It means you need to know what is going to be valuable for you. And if there are alternatives, then by all means, go for them. If you do want to continue collecting DVDs, you can. If you do want to continue buying vinyl records or CDs, you can. They're all going to be there. You just need to kind of accept that you're going to be the exception. And the rule is going to be people like me that have drunk the Kool-Aid, that have accepted that subscriptions are part of the future of our software and of our media. And it's the way of the land. It's the way it's going to go. However, if you've got strong opinions, if you've got strong thoughts, and I bet my bottom dollar that many of you do, I would love to hear from you. If you're watching the video version of this, there is a wonderful comment section that is about to get bombarded with a whole bunch of feedback and opinions. I predicted. I'm putting my hat on. I'm putting my prediction on there that subscriptions always gives people that little needle, and some people really don't like it. Some people probably do, and some people will just accept it. It's just the way things go. There's always going to be a differing of opinion, and that's kind of what makes the world a bit spicy and a bit interesting and keeps the world turning around. So I hope you found this interesting, and I hope it just gave you a little bit of perspective, because subscriptions are not new. Subscriptions have been around for a long time. They probably are going to be the future, whether we like it or not. And I think us as consumers, we just need to be really sure about what we want to subscribe to, keep a close eye on what we're spending money on, and make sure we're getting value. Because again, these things should be fun. You should be subscribing to software that makes you happy, that helps you be creative. You should be subscribing to media, to audio, to video that makes you happy. And if it doesn't, guess what? Don't spend the money. Spend your money elsewhere. Save up your money and go and sit on a beach in the Caribbean and bang a steel drum and be happy. But as we say at the end of every show, all I want to say is please be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and keep creating. And don't forget, jump on over to studiolivetoday.com for all the ways that you can interact with me and the channel here. We've got a bunch of great tutorials and a wonderful community of people over there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you next time on the Studio Live Today podcast.